special meeting of the Board of Education to order. The next regular Board of Education will be held on Saturday, January 6th at 8:30 a.m. in the board meeting room. Before I turn the meeting over to Alan, I just want to make a couple comments. Thank you to everybody who's tuning in for the budget process. This is a big part of our year. It's step one in a very long process. Tonight is mostly a formality in which we introduce the budget to the public, or the superintendent does. Saturday will be a long, in-depth conversation about each of the responsibility centers, and there will be a lot of board questions at that time. There'll be a series of follow-ups. We have time for questions from board members, of course, starting Saturday in particular, and then moving on through a number of meetings from fellow government bodies and comments from the public. January 30th is the public hearing, and February 13th is the approval of the budget. At that time, what is now the superintendent budget becomes the Board of Education budget. While we will dive into quite a bit of what is in this book, I do want to remind people of what we talked about in November 14th, that there are three main drivers of this budget that occur before we put this book into print. The first is collective bargaining agreements with the DEA, with DAA, and with non-certified staff. We stand behind the historically high ranges that we have settled with staff. This is a district that values teachers and feels it's very important to have teachers in classrooms, particularly during a time of teacher and administrative shortages. Secondly is health insurance. Health insurance is important. We're going to take care of our people. We also have high claims with high renewals. And third is special education, legislative changes, increases in placements in unilateral agreements, and the increased need for support services. If you'd like more information about that, again, there's a meeting on 11/14 that walks through those three drivers in more detail. With 7.4 as a starting point and a proposed budget here of 6.9%, this was going to be a difficult budget year. Historically, this is not in line with our traditional budget numbers. So we are expecting to be a part of some difficult conversations, not because we wanted to be part of difficult conversations, but because we are. So a few requests to all of us. Number one, to give the board time to do its work. Number two, for us all to listen to one another, to seek to understand, not necessarily to agree, but to understand, to ask questions, to speak, and to remember that underneath it all, we're talking about people. We're talking about students, staff, teachers, parents, BOE members, fellow government officials, neighbors, and friends. Thank you. And with that, I'll turn it over to Alan.
Jill, just one correction. You said 6.9, it's 6.19.
Thank you for that correction.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for attending. I see many of our staff members are here, and parents and members of the community. Thank you for your participation. Welcome back. It's the first opportunity to share welcome back with you to the new year. I trust you had an enjoyable break, and we're back into the season. A couple of thank yous, if you don't mind, before I actually present, because it's certainly been a challenging budget. And a lot of people have contributed to this. Thank you to members of my cabinet who have dedicated a lot of time to these discussions, to my principals, to the department chairs. I'd like to especially recognize Mr. Rudel, the Director of Finance of his department, and if I may say, a couple of our administrative assistants, Sheila Flynn, Michelle Lopez, and Nadine Facile. The budget is also a wee time to recognize and celebrate the success of our amazing students and talented staff members. This tonight is a sort of like 30,000-foot view, the first sort of preview of the budget, so to speak, the first sort of rollout. I'll be a wee bit redundant here and there, but that's okay, because until we continue to get a wee sense of what's in the budget. Saturday will be in detail of presentations by the respective RCs, time for further discussion and certainly board deep dialogue into each of the aspects of the budget. I just want to share that it's been a very challenging budget. We at the start, as the chairman has said, that 6 through 8%, even getting to 6.19% has been difficult. There's been some forced decisions that I feel has have to make to get there. Just a couple of clarifications right out the door, if I may. There are 8 teaching positions, 6 at the middle school and 2 at the elementary, teachers per se, that would be impacted by this. When I say impacted, I mean technically would not have a job, right? So let's just be clear about that. I would hope and expect that we could accommodate some of those positions through attrition and otherwise. So that there are 3 central services positions that people will be losing, and there's 1 administrative department head position who will be losing a position. Though that's the scope, even though the numbers might say something different in FTEs, like 2.5 FTEs might not be 2.5, it might be 3, right? Or it might be 2, depending on if there's a vacancy in the district or otherwise. So currently, we're at 8 teaching positions, 6 at the middle school, 2 at the elementary school, 3 at central services, and 1 administration. I will say, while it's been a difficult budget, there are some decisions that I would make regardless. And that's honestly looking at the middle school and looking at middle school enrollment. I think it's prudent. I think it's appropriate to do so, given what I'll share later. There are some positions that honestly, if money was no object, I'm trying to be responsible here and responsive to the community and to our taxpayers. This is a district that values education. Teachers come to work here because of the quality of the school system. Our families come to live here because of the quality of the school system. Making difficult decisions is not mutually exclusive about having a top, high quality, exemplary school system. There are just some forced decisions and necessary decisions that need to be taken. So there are some that if I wasn't conscious of the budget number and being reasonable about it, things like the department chair for word language you'll hear, I would reinstate that position. The department coordinator or the curriculum coordinator, I would reinstate that position. There are others at the middle school for scheduling wise. I feel it's incumbent and most responsible to actually look at those. The board can invariably make that decision. But there are some that I would put back in if the board wanted to do that, or there was more resources available, but I just think it's responsible. They're not just mutually exclusive discussions, and it's responsible. I also feel that this positions, and I respect my colleagues here who are teachers here in front of me this evening, but I do believe, and I'm actually excited I'm pleased to present this budget. I think it positions the district, even though there's difficult decisions that have been made, that I think it positions the district in a better position than we are actually today. And I firmly believe that for services, both for teachers and for students and for families. So for that, I will open up and go through the budget, and we'll just go through the PowerPoint as we have it here in front of us. For members of the community here, my teaching staff, it's right on the front page of the website. If you want to follow along, you can certainly do that. Or if you're at home, just go to the front page of the website. You'll see it listed there. I'll wait till the chair returns.
No.
Are you sure? Okay. So the budget and the work of the district is organized around and supports the vision and the mission of our school system. Darien is a vibrant town. It's a growing town with downtown, our apartments, our school buildings, and I think you'll feel that we get a good return on our investment. But these are the drivers for our mission and our vision for our students in the future, and everything aligns to that. Additionally, you'll see that the district strategic plan, the various aspects of the align aligned to that, and I share that a little bit later in the actual presentation. Board goals are embedded here, but we don't have board goals for next year. It's a sort of a continuation of board goals a little bit, but you'll see they'll align to board goals too. But essentially, the items in the budget align to the district strategic plan. I'll share these particular big aspects. These are sort of what the budget actually addresses specifically. It aligns to the strategic plan, as I've just mentioned. It utilizes strategic staffing and scheduling. So we did make enrollment-based reductions and middle school and elementary reductions through scheduling and efficiencies. It directs resources to the middle school, most particularly a new program director for special education, an assistant principal. It increases SRBI and interventions for students, and it addresses mental health through Teen Talk. That Teen Talk has been actively being reviewed and has been applied for in time with the town organization who's actually looking to support that. It's a $90,000 grant. Invariably, we'll probably, we'll drop this out of the budget because it's not a part of the operating budget, but I just wanted to mention it, that it's part of the services for the middle school. We support special education staffing, particularly through the support of additional paraprofessional support. We actually expand preschool from 4 days to 5 days. We're suggesting to do that with paraprofessional staffing and transportation. So that will go for that. The proposal on the table is 4 to 5 days. We're excited about that. It also aligns to the kindergarten legislation, and I think it's helpful to our families. We have redesigned the secondary administrative structure. This budget calls for middle school and Darien High School assistant principals. I will say this, right? The reduction in teachers is not going to support new administration. This is a net reduction of administrators to redeploy administrators at the high school and the middle school. So the idea of teachers being used to support, bless you, being used to support administration is not the case, because I would be making those changes anyway, or be suggesting those changes anyway. We have reduced to administrators, and we believe it's a better service both for special education and regular education. And we have increased to administrators, so it's a net zero. So that includes 2 SES program directors, and we'll talk a little bit about that. A director of visual and performing arts. So that basically collapses the art and the music into one particular position for administrator. And it provides for teacher coverage. So teacher coverage has been a constant issue we've had for a couple of years. And so this addresses it by increasing built-in substitutes from 2 to 4 at each of the elementary schools. So this just gives you an idea of where we've been, how much money we returned to the town. If you're wondering why do we not have 24 on there? Well, we haven't finished that yet. It's likely we'll be at a deficit of minus about 400,000 or so. We'll see how that plays out. But the FY24 was around 114,000 in the budget. And again, as you know, it's running at a deficit in the range of 400,000. Some of those early years were turnover benefits, others were unfilled enrollment, and certainly the asterisk one was the COVID. This is the net expenditure per student, per pupil. It is an interesting sort of evaluation of expenditures in education. It doesn't cover everything that the budget actually covers. Transportation and different things aren't covered under the net expenditure, but it gives you it's one data point. It gives you one data point. We're in the medium area here. If you were looking at how to read this, Ridgefield, Easton, New Canaan, and Wilton, if they had our enrollment, they would. This is how much they would pay less in taxes. The other districts with that NCEP, that's how much more they would have to raise in taxes in those particular times. So that's just with our enrollment as a comparison. I do want to recognize the accomplishments of the district before I set off. We have a number of students who have been recognized as the National Merit Scholars, Commendable Scholars, Presidential Scholars. Our students participating in music and the arts have been outstanding. They continue to do extremely well in competitions such as the Quiz Bowl. Our athletic teams have 25 state championships, either in FCIC or CIAC this particular year. I want to appreciate the fact that our district and our staff lead in the area. I would say lead in the area of mental health and the work that we do there through the teen center, library at the high school, our director of mental health. These are all areas where I think we actually lead. I also want to recognize that we lead in the area of safety. So by any sort of imagination, we are getting a good return on investment. Our schools that have just opened. This chart here is an accountability index. It's just a wee point in time. This accountability index is assigned to each school district in Connecticut. And it's out of 100 as a percentage out of 100. And what this shows you is the actual accountability index with the actual expenditures. So if you were to look at this, the blue dot is Darien, and that is at 85.5%. That's an accountability index. The accountability index is a multifaceted factor. It takes into consideration achievement, student growth for regular education students, special education students, absenteeism, college readiness, post-secondary readiness, physical fitness, and the arts. So it's a just broader perspective. And as you can see there to the left of our blue dot, there's two districts. That happens to be Madison and New Canaan, who spend a little bit less and get a little bit higher index. We are at 85.5. The other two districts, 86.9 and 86.9. But as you can see, we're across the board, we're getting a high return on our investment. This just gives a wee sense of enrollment. The enrollment report is included in the budget, and as is the scheduling review. So I'll just point out in the appendix at the back of the book, the report that we got on scheduling is there for further reflection and consideration. Next year enrollment decreases across the district by 3 students. Our elementary over the next 5 or so years decreases by about 5%. The middle school and the high school, the middle school increases by about 3%, and the high school decreases by about 3%. So over the next 5 years, about 108 students, or 2.4% increase. So enrollment, we've reduced one section in Hindley for enrollment purposes in first grade. We have increased one section at Holmes in first grade, and we've increased one section at Tokenique in second grade for class sections. The Holmes second grade and the Tokenique third grade are the closest to tipping. So they're 3 students away from tipping. So essentially, we're in that one additional 1 FTE for enrollment purposes at the elementary schools. So we did do a review of class sizes. This actually just comes from the report that the board actually received not so long ago from the middle school administration when we looked at class sizes. So if you look at this particular graph, it shows you what the average class sizes were in FY20. And since FY20 to FY24, in each of these disciplines, they've reduced by the respective percentages there. It says the change in class size since FY20 to this year. So it shows you where we are. The suggested class sizes for the middle school will result in the average class sizes on the left. So that's 20, 18.7, 19, 21, 21. The guidelines from the Board of Education is between 18 and 24. We did have a report done, and the report is part of the whole budget process, so everybody can read it. We did not take the reductions, or even close to the reductions that were potentially suggested in there. So the potential suggestion in there that we could have reduced the staffing at the middle school by over 12 FTEs. That is not what we've done here. We want to be conservative as we consider this option and consider this strategy. If the same level of enrollment decline at the middle school would have resulted in a reduction of 6 FTEs. And if you look at the class sizes at the elementary school, many of these are higher than currently at the middle school. The average class size in the DERG is at 22 students. So we're going to be average class size at 21 with the suggested changes. The budget itself, before we go into some other details of the budget, is a 6.19% increase. These are the relative driving factors. Bless you. Contractual salaries are just over 3%. Our health insurance is 1.23%. The new bus contract is nearly 0.5%. And an increase in special education is around just over 2%. That's the core expenditures, and then the changes that have been listed there, and I'll touch on as I go through the presentation. Those are the modifications. These are the drivers and salaries. Our teachers and administrators. Our teachers this year's at 4.5%, and the administration will be built in at 3.25%. We did the grant compression is a wellness and interventionist that will be taken out of grants, because we have to sort of balance grants. That we're not running out of money, but we have to sort of like consciously just be aware of what the rollovers in those grants are, what the end date you have to spend the grants and so on. So we have taken some positions out of grants, and they have to go into the operating budget. Extended year program for 0.28. Other is subs, curriculum, salaries, schedule efficiencies that I've talked about, and then staff reductions. This sort of summarizes our net decrease of FTEs. If you consider the grant, and it lists here minus 3.17. If you were considering the grant, we are reducing one from the grant, position from the grant. That's an accounted position from food service grant, and so that's one reduction there. And we have replaced that with moved some stuff out of the operating budget into that particular position, and that's essentially some additional cleaning staff and maintenance staff. So if you quickly just run down here, you've got the elementary class sections. That's the net increase that I just talked about, minus one at Henley, an additional one at Holmes, an additional one at Tokenique. The scheduling efficiencies from the middle school and the elementary schools, that's essentially 8 positions, or 8 FTEs. The paraprofessionals, we have 9 paraprofessionals, 3 for ELP, and then we have 2 for the extended the program of ELP. So that's a total of 14, 9 for the regular special education requirements. We have reduced instructional paraprofessionals. There you see the 10 to reduce from each school. That has helped us to address the substitute teacher situation. I'll just address that as it comes up. This is the wellness coordinator that comes out of the grant, the ARP grant that will be terminating next year. So we will be taking that out and putting that into that part of it into the operating budget. There's an interventionist in Title I that we have to balance that particular grant also. So half of that position comes now into the operating budget. The assistant principal, additional assistant principal at the high school, additional assistant principal at the middle school. I'm just naming these so you sort of like recognize them to start with. The 2 department chairs for special education. And so that's being replaced by 1 position. We have 1 other department chair, and that's the department chair for world language. The director of special education, that's a position that we have created for K through 12, and predominantly for continuity of special education services K through 12. Mandarin is an increase of a 0.2 for 7th to 8th grade. The art coordinator has been collapsed into a position pre-K through 12 for music and performing arts. The elementary curriculum director has been as a position that I've reduced. Again, preferably I would prefer not to do that, but trying to commit a decent budget number for the community. I felt that we had to do that. We will have 5 curriculum specialist teachers stipended to assist our director of elementary and our assistant superintendent for curriculum. We have 1 campus monitor reduction at the middle school. We have a number of drivers who will be able to provide support, particularly during lunchtime areas there. There's 6 to 8 drivers will be over staff members who will be able to provide services there. We have 1 accountant. That work from the accountant, it comes from the food, our food grant, and that work is being disseminated between other employees in the business department. Again, these are decisions that we wouldn't make if we had to make some tough choices. We have some drivers for a Suburban, an additional Suburban we're going to purchase, suggest in purchasing. We have a wheelchair van also that we would like to purchase. I believe that would be an efficiency for us. So there you can see that the staff in total is minus 2.17 from the operating budget, another one from the food service. So the redesign of the administrative structure, this is a net zero to the actual budget. So yes, we are adding a high school assistant principal and a middle school assistant principal, but we're offsetting that. And there you can see on the right, just essentially just to follow what's going on at high school principal and middle school principal. We have reduced the word language department term. Ordinarily, I wouldn't support that. And ordinarily I've been at this table not supporting that. We're a different set of circumstances to consider this point. And honestly, I respect people who may disagree, but I believe this model, if this is the resources we have, is best for kids, staff, and families. Middle school SAS department chair, so that is reduced, as is the one at the high school. They are replaced by a program director, which will basically they go from 10 months to 12 months, those two positions. The director of SAS K through 12, excuse me, 12 plus, that will also provide continuity of services. Currently, we have one for elementary and one for high school. And there you see the elementary SAS program director and the secondary SAS program director. On the left describes the changes that are made. And I think I've mentioned most of those right now, but essentially we are replacing the department chair for special education at the middle school and high school with the program directors for those two positions, extending their work from 10 months to 12 months. We then also have established this director of SAS K through 12 plus. Yes, it does eliminate one special education administrator. That's where the other position comes from. But we believe this model actually will serve us better. Actually. So it's important that the middle school and the high school assistant principals and these particular special services positions, administrative positions, be looked collectively together because they work collectively together. And I'll share a wee bit about that in the next page or two. So this sort of describes some of the additional benefits and additional work of the program directors that we're suggesting, the director of special education and the assistant principals. I'll perhaps start with the assistant principals. A lot of our assistant principals at both the middle school and the high school, I'll say this just in this sort of vein, can't get out of their offices because they're buried in meetings. And a lot of those are PPT meetings that they spend a lot of their time there. It's important that they have the time to actually engage in instructional leadership, be available for students, be available for staff, and be available for families. They need to be a presence, in my opinion, they need to be a greater presence in the actual buildings themselves outside of their offices. They certainly try, but it's literally impossible to do that. You'll see when we talk about exit interviews, that is one of the reasons that our administrators have left the district, because of the extent of the workload and not being able to actually do the work. So you'll see some of the reasons what we put down for assistant principals. The two principals will be here on Saturday to talk specifically about these, but building a positive school climate, contributing to instructional leadership, bridging opportunities for curriculum and instructional strategies, both for general education and special education, increased presence at after-school functions, and it also addresses the retention and recruitment of administrative staff. And I know at the same time you could say, well, you just reduced an administrator out of special education and Spanish. Well, I just don't think that they're necessarily separate all the time. I think you can do both. If I could do both, financially, I would, but I don't think the objectives are mutually exclusive. I think you can accomplish both at the same time. So the Director of Special Education, K through 12, will work obviously under Shirley's direction. That will bring vertical orientation K through 12 in special education, social emotional development, specialized and supplemental programs. It will develop professional capacity of the staff in specialized instructional methodologies. It will develop transition programming for 18 to 20 for 22, evaluation supervision, and also for ESY planning for K through 12 plus. Our programs directors, that is you could consider this as the department chairs being changed into program directors with going from 10 months to 12 months. They will PPT chairs designated by our assistant superintendent for SES from Shirley. So they will develop specialized programs and implementation, oversee implementation. They'll be involved more in instructional leadership. They will be on hand for ESY planning and site administration, and to try to make sure that those goes as smoothly as possible and that we have people on site. They'll be available for summer hiring, caseload assignments, PPT attendance, and supporting new staff in the department. That'll be available also for our parents during that period of time. We will speak more about these particular matters, but that gives you a sense. The additional building administrators will decrease their amount of time with the additional assistant principal that they're spending in PPTs. And it's not unusual for our administrators to be spending 45% or 50% of their day in PPTs. It really isn't possible for them to do instructional leadership, be visible around the building, provide supervision, connect with all kids and all families as much as they should. I'll be sure a little bit of information here in this particular chart that the high school, currently we have 1 to 53 students in terms of participating of IEPs. With the proposed change, we would go to 1 to 48. That's still above the DERG average of 1 to 38. And you can see similarly there for the middle school. We currently are at the bottom of the 2 districts in the DERG for administrators supervising PPTs. I mean, our identification rate in Darien is close now to 19%, may actually be at this point 19%. The average of the rest of the DERGs is 15. It's just something we have to recognize. Our administrators are committed to servicing our students in special services and their families, but they also need a wee bit of help to do the rest of the actual job that they're assigned to. We have realized the efficiencies, as I shared before. We did work with a consultant on new solutions who work with our administration, our principals primarily, and central services staff. They have done this work before. They came in with a very special, just a focus. That did not review special education staff, and it did not review staffing dedicated to non-instructional services, and it did not review our elementary classroom staffing. They did a cursory review, but we didn't ask them to do that because we already managed that very, very well and appropriately under the staff guidelines. The findings were that middle school classes are under enrollment well below the existing Board of Ed guidelines. You could actually make the criticism, why have you not looked at this before? That's probably fair, actually, from the superintendent. Like, okay, you could have looked at this before. Yes, I could have. Do we have administrators who can schedule? Yes. People don't want to give things up. People are doing things objectively or otherwise. I wanted to make sure, though, that this could actually be also implemented and that they would actually stay for the implementation of it. So I just think at this particular juncture, it's important to give this another closer look. It maintains essentially the team structure at the middle school. I'll say this, that the team structures, middle school team structures are one of the most expensive ways that you can staff a school. Now, I understand the team structure. I understand the need for it and so on, right? But it is one of the most expensive ways. This still maintains the team structure. One of the teams essentially will be reduced. It'll either be 6th or 7th grade, or just finalizing that right now. But we're still maintaining essentially the team structure there. The ability, the reductions that we're talking about here, we are talking about making eight reductions, given what the consultant has shared with us in the review of this. That could have been easily 12 positions, right? I don't feel comfortable doing the 12 positions. I don't feel comfortable going that deep at this particular point. I certainly want to see how this is implemented. But there's the reductions that we're making at this particular point for elementary physical education, Tokenique, Henley, Holmes, 0.8 elementary, 1.2 elementary music. So that's for a total of 2.4 elementary teachers at this particular point, or parts of teachers. At the middle school, it says minus 5.6, and there you can see how we get to the actual 5.6 reductions. We have about 40 teachers who are teaching 4 sections. The contract asked us to, over time, we don't replace teachers and replace them with teachers teaching 5 classes, right? 5 full classes. We have about 40 teachers at the minute who teach 4 sections. This will also allow us to provide SRBI interventions for students, a greater number than we're doing now. We have about 25 slots for language, arts, and mathematics. This could potentially double those amount of time for support for middle school students and interventions. And I'll also say, like, my teachers are here, like, I respect what they do, but it's not equitable either. We got elementary teachers like on a treadmill, and our middle school teachers work extremely hard. No problem about that, but you should be doing as much classes as anyone else. I just share it that way because that's the way I actually see it, and I think it's an equity issue, fairness issue across the district. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but teaching 4 classes versus teaching all day long in elementary school, or teaching 5 classes at the high school, it's not equitable. And it's incumbent upon me to bring that to the table at some point, or to rationalize it at some point, or to review it in light of some of the challenges we have. So that's what I've done. And the teachers who are teaching 4 will either do a necessary duty or will be involved in additional supports for students, particularly around SRBI and interventions. Again, the middle school, I feel in the middle school, given the needs of the students at that particular school at this point, needs support, both administratively, support for students, and mental health. Those are the areas in the middle school that I feel important to address through this particular budget. Now, you said the budget for mental health, that's through a grant, but it's still addressing those particular areas. I apologize to the board that I didn't flag. Like, we tend to try and help, if you're going to do a new program or something, can you flag it? We were looking at this. I have shared with the board that it's not possible to flag everything. We're certainly not holding anything back. At the time of this, we were still potentially working at this idea. We're proposing expanding the preschool program from 4 days a week to 5 days a week, with an early dismissal on day 5. The additional revenue will be 167,000, but offset by transportation costs and 10 paraprofessionals, who will increase by 0.2. The additional saving then is around $73,000. But we also feel that this is responsive to in some capacity to the kindergarten legislation, and also responsive to continuity of services for our parents in the town. Students receiving specially designed instruction will still come in 30 minutes early, or sorry, an hour early. This is the teacher coverage and substitutes. And we have had difficulty finding teaching substitutes. And since my teachers are here, I want to thank all of them. And they're representing others who are in the buildings for stepping up. And many times they're covering classes. That's actually middle school too, right? And across the district, they will teach an additional course, whether it's 4 to 5, 5 to 6, or otherwise. So thank you where you've had to do that. So we're suggesting under this redesign to allocate instructional aids to primarily support our younger students in kindergarten and first grade, with some flexibility for our principals to make other decisions. We'd reduce 10 instructional aids and redirect those funds to hire additional building subs. Essentially, our paraprofessionals are being pulled to cover classes. So this is what is actually happening. Our principals would actually prefer this particular model. So we're suggesting to hire 2 permanent building subs for each building. We would increase the substitute daily rate by $25. It's currently at $150 a day. And we'd increase that to $175. And we'd propose a retention incentive for every 60 days worked in the district to try and maintain substitutes. So this table here just shows that the instructional aids goes from 4. As some Royal has 3, Oxbridge has 5, the other schools have 4. We would be reducing those all to 2. We've added a lunch monitor to each school. So you'll see that in there, the lunch monitors were 1, but we have added a lunch monitor to each school. Our building substitutes are going from 2 to 4. That's the building substitutes. So originally we were at 4, or sorry, we were 2, and now we're going to 4. We also, at this point, I shared with you in the other graph that we reduced the middle school campus monitor. So we feel that this helps address the teacher shortage, and it's being more honest to actually what is happening, and actually it's an efficiency. We understand the health rate increase. We've gone from last year like 7%. We've basically doubled that to 13.8, given our usage of health rates and the plan itself. Health benefit base increase, you see there the new hires that are accounted for in this particular budget. The position reductions, if you're wondering, like, how can we double the health rate and still maintain the 1.4 million? Well, we're saving like close to $1 million in position reductions. The pensions and post-employment benefits, that's medical, life insurance, disability, federal tax. The board's net contribution to that is close to, well, just over 400,000 or 450,000 or 441 to be precise. So that's 1.26 of our actual budget. Special education, we have 9 special education paraprofessionals, 3 for ELP, and then another 2.0, which represents 10.2s for the new ELP. Special education tuition is out of district. So that's for students who services are provided out of district. Our contractor services represent our speech, PT and contractor services. So this 2.58% is increases in the amount of special education that contributes to 2.5 of the total budget. Our excess costs is 85,000. So we'll be getting we'll be getting less money there, but that's an expense to us then. And ESY, we have more days in June. We typically start the last week in June, just depends the way the calendar falls, whether we can save money there or whether we can't. In this case, it starts the last week in June, and with the additional days, it's added to that particular amount. So that comes to 2.58% of the total budget increase for special services. So I thought it's worth just at least aligning some of the things that we're doing to the strategic plan. I won't go over all of these, but we are offering a number of new courses that are on the table, and that comes at an expense. The board has approved those, but obviously it's not approving the course is one thing. Whether it exists or not through the budget process is another thing. The maintains class sizes aligned to board guidelines. It supports special education and expansion of the ELP program from 4 to 5. It provides intervention services, greater intervention services to middle school students. It has the administrative restructuring. The school psychology internship program, middle school teen talk, a grant, we'll probably drop this out of the operating budget, but I think it's worth noting. Expanding the professional capacity of the staff, teacher, administrator contracts are supported in this budget. The retention and recruitment of teachers and administrators, and I know you could say, well, how you reduce them, but I just would argue that they're not mutually exclusive ideas. Teacher and substitute shortages, the reallocation of resources through the scheduling efficiencies. It supports student transportation. We have a suburban again and a special education services van that will be suggesting. Facility maintenance, high school library and theater improvements are in the capital project, and the replacement cycle for our technology. We honor the replacement cycle for our technology devices. I won't go over all of these because the board has gone through the capital plan, so it's fairly straightforward. You've seen the schools, you've seen these particular items on the capital plan, so I won't go through all of these, but for the sake of the people who are in the audience, that's a quick look.
And the tour is filmed and online if people want to watch it.
Correct. So that brings us to the 6.19 presented in this particular budget. Again, I believe that this provides services for students, teachers, families, and with the allocation of the funds, positions better than we are this year. Again, there are some positions that ideally I wouldn't make if there were different funds available. These are the upcoming meetings that follow the budget calendar. I would encourage our staff, our community members to continue to participate and be engaged in the process. And these are the various meetings that will be upcoming. With that, I'll turn it back to the board, and I appreciate your consideration and listening. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Hadley. So this is largely just a presentation. It's not a discussion. If there's anything high level that anybody wants to flag, for Saturday, more in detail discussion, board members are welcome to do that here, or they're welcome to send an email. Is there anything anybody wants to flag at this moment? John?
Yeah, thank you. Because the strategic staffing strategy is so important to the budget, I would ask that we, one, don't miss the appendix this year, because I said, don't miss the appendix this year.
Yes,
that's
correct.
where it's located. And it's not in the forefront. We often skip the appendix, but two, if we could have a more in-depth presentation through the budget process on that, as well as ELP, because I feel like these are two initiatives that the board really hasn't discussed in full detail. And as we've done in previous years, maybe break these out in a little more detail and come along the process. Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'll turn it over to public comment. Michelle.
Good evening. If anyone would like to participate in public comment, we'll start with in person. Please state your name and record. For the record, you'll have up to 3 minutes to comment. Also, please note, we have a timer on the front desk over there with Ms. McCammon, and that will mark your 3 minutes. Thank you very much. We'll start with.
Thank you, Barry Palmer. I'm the Teachers Union President. Do I need to give my address today? Or?
Town is fine. No.
Danbury. Okay. Again, thank you to the board for allowing me to speak tonight. I understand the board has a lot of work to do, and the teachers want to give the board room and space to do their jobs. But because of some of the budget proposals, we feel obligated to make sure you are equipped with all the information you need to do those jobs. Dr. Adley's presentation today, it's not an accurate reflection of the realities our teachers are facing. And I can tell you, as someone who taught 9 years of middle school, I would invite anyone to spend some time in a middle school teacher's shoes to see what their daily lives are like when we have these conversations and make these decisions. I'm glad Dr. Adley touched upon the special education identification rate. I think, as some of you know, in some cases, we literally have twice as many students identified from some of our districts in our DIRG. And it's exceptionally challenging to meet the individual needs of every student, including our most vulnerable and our gifted students in the general education classroom. It becomes more challenging when in a class of 24, 11 students have formalized individual education plans or 504s. Your teachers know this daily. I have heard for the last couple of years, the board continually ask administration, what do you need? And we're only asking, you're only hearing about the answer from the special education administration, but this special education students never leave the general education world. That's important to remember. We need to make sure we have manageable class sizes, especially at the middle school, when we have to consider they have everybody in the room at once, and they need to provide every single one of those students, our most vulnerable to our highest achieving students, their best, and they need to provide everything for them. And I think this budget fails to do that. So with that, thank you. I look forward to continuing to give you guys as much information as you need to make the most informed decision.
Go ahead.
Hi, I am Jen Fisher, also from Danbury. I am the third grade teacher at Oxbridge and the DEA Vice President for elementary pre-K through 5. As an educator in this district for 16 years, I'm devastated at the short-sighted nature of Dr. Adley's proposed budget. It is apparent that this budget is the result of top-down initiatives that lack a long-term vision and an obvious inadequate analysis of the impacts that the proposed cuts will have directly on the children in our charge. The elementary staff has deep respect for the work that the middle school teachers do, and we are deeply distressed to hear of the proposed cuts to their staffing. The cuts that are proposed at the elementary level will limit student access to enriching areas of their education. Special areas such as art, gym, and music are the opportunities for our youngest learners to be exposed to critical areas of expression and creativity, which is directly linked to Darian's vision of the graduate. By cutting these programs down, the opportunity to dream, imagine, and invent is taking a direct hit. Additionally, cutting a curricular teacher position in the midst of having to evaluate, restructure, research, pilot, and reconfigure components of our literacy curriculum seems detrimental and short-sighted at best, and a direct hit to the standard of our high-quality education and instruction to students' learning outcomes at most. This doesn't even begin to touch the devastation that cutting instructional paraprofessionals poses to those of us in elementary classrooms. One has to wonder if we are simply throwing spaghetti at a wall and seeing what will stick, as opposed to a true analysis of what this district needs to maintain its quality of education. Dr. Adley's proposed budget is riddled with direct negative impacts on the most valued individuals of this district, our students. Our students are our future. Is this what the future will hold? A pattern of cutting programming and the teachers that help forge the paths for our students moving forward. Darien is a premier district. The teachers have repeatedly heard from parents and board members alike that the positive outcomes for their children are directly linked to the excellence of the teachers and the programming that we have. By upper level administration cutting programming and thereby cutting teachers, you are cutting the very foundation on which we have built the excellence of this district. During this budget season, I implore the board to consider carefully the direct impacts Dr. Adley's proposed budget will make on your children and their ability to attain the vision of the graduate and to dream, imagine, and invent. Thank you.
Anyone else in person? If anyone online would like to participate, please use the raised hand icon. Emma Hesselsweet, you are unmuted and recognized. Excuse me, Emma, you have to unmute on your end.
Good evening. I'm Emma Hesselsweet, a sixth grader at Middlesex Middle School, and I live at 15 Stanley Road. I've conversed with numerous students attending MMS all of which confirmed they would be devastated to see any teachers leave. I love all of my teachers, and even after graduating homes, I continue to keep in touch with my former teachers and often pay them visits. As to many of my friends, and it would be much to our chagrin to see any of our teachers leave. When I graduate MMS, I would be very distraught to come back in hopes of visiting former teachers and realize they were not working there. Also, Dr. Adley and the board should understand how busy it is at MMS and how we need all the teachers to help. I already wish I had more time with my teachers, and even fewer teachers. And with even fewer teachers, class sizes increase and the time teachers have to spend with their students decrease. This will have a lasting effect on everyone for years to come, and Middlesex will never be the same without all of our teachers. Everyone on the Board of Education should care more about what the students think, as they were elected and one day we will vote.
User Anthony's iPhone, you are unmuted and recognized.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. It's a very well put together presentation, but I think it lacks a number of the key
Sorry,
elements.
can we have
Yeah.
your name and address, please, for the minute?
Sorry, yes. Yes, it's Anthony Evans. I live in Norwalk, but moving to Darien. So if I'm permitted to speak on that basis.
Please.
Okay, thank you. Very well put together presentation, but it reduces the very essence of middle school education to budgets, which obviously are reality. However, what it misses is the number of hours, knowing the number of teachers in the district, the number of hours these teachers are working outside up to 8 or 9 o'clock at night to create, modify, and personalize the syllabus so that they can deliver a high quality education to the students. And so by taking out from the languages, from the specialist subjects, what we're doing is not only impacting the current students, but we're reducing the competitiveness of Darien, which is why a lot of people move there, is for the high quality education. And it's why I'm looking to move there. And so we're reducing the quality of education, not just now, but these aren't policies that can be turned around in a very short period of time. They take planning, they take integration. You've got to then build the rehire culture. And then once the school district gets a reputation for cutting roles, there's a lot of competition in other towns that hire them, and it's very hard to get those teachers back. So the reality of budgets are known. It was a very well thought out, albeit I'm always cynical that when a consultant is leading it rather than those people that live and breathe the actual education system. Very well put together, but what I would say is I just would implore that the board looks at other areas of the budget that are non-directly adding value to the education system and see if cuts can be made there, working with the very eloquent union reps who spoke earlier, rather than just jump into what is always an easy target, which is let's just cut headcount. All right, because it's quick to do and it's hard to repair. So that's me. Thank you.
Anyone else online? There are no more raised hands at this time.
With that, may I have a motion to adjourn this meeting? That's Julie, seconded by Dennis. All those in favor? Thank you. We'll see everybody on Saturday.